I got a little head cold here, so you're gonna get a lot of baritone in this intro. Hope you enjoy it. Don't you just love crossover episodes? I'm gonna let you know a little secret. Casey and Chris keep us locked in the basement at DFAT headquarters, and we only get food if we do crossover episodes. So it's lunchtime. This is episode 5, season 3. And my guest today is Rocco from CriticalMass. He picked the original Ghostbusters movie, the one that launched the franchise from 1984. Check out him and Dan over at CriticalMass Podcast. Find them on Facebook at CriticalMass Podcast 69 and Instagram at CriticalMass Podcast. Or check out the description for a link. This is a big blockbuster movie, guys, so there's a lot to unpack with this one. Sit back and enjoy, as without further ado, on with the show. So we are jumping right into this. Rocco, I am excited about this. Real quick, before we get into what we're going to, like how the show is going to play out, because this is going to be a little different than my normal show. But before we get into that, let's talk about the movie you picked and why you picked it. So as everybody knows at this point, season 3, I challenged all the guests this season to pick a movie that they thought was going to land in the top 10. And to be honest with you, I'm really surprised with some of the responses I've gotten. So my episode 1, I'll go through the episodes that have already aired to this point, but I won't do any ones in the future. Episode 1 was The Pest, which was not a strong kickoff to the season. That movie is atrocious. And I'm going to go on the record and say it's probably the worst movie we've covered on the podcast so far. It made for a great episode, but the movie was painful to watch. After that, it was Lawless with Shia LaBeouf and Tom Hardy.
I do remember that movie. Okay, I never seen it, but now I know what it is. Yes.
Then it was St. Vincent with Bill Murray.
That was a great movie.
And Melissa McCarthy. Who
I love that
has a
movie.
connection to the Ghostbusters world. And then in our first Is It Really That Bad episode, we had Captain Lenny pick Waterworld, which I think if you're going to go with a big movie that people think is bad but also has a cult following, I mean, that's the perfect one to do. Waterworld does have a strong and tight following, although it's largely considered a bad movie. Yes,
it was. I mean, I liked it for what it was. I like that I'm the age that I am now when I finally saw that movie. So I finally saw I guess I saw it like in my early 30s, and I'm in my mid 30s now. And I had never seen it just because forever it was like, the movie sucks.
Right.
But like, I was like, I know the time period this movie came out, and I know all the hype behind it. And that to me made it a good. I actually really enjoyed the movie.
There's one scene in that movie that makes that movie classic, and that is Kevin Costner doing a dolphin move out of the water. It's so picturesque. I just want to get that scene framed and put on my wall. And then you with Ghostbusters, which I gotta say, I'm not going to go into what my thoughts are until the end of the show, but this is definitely a bold movie to pick. I mean, this has got a huge cult following, and we're going to get into it in detail. So tell me, why'd you pick Ghostbusters, and what is your connection with this movie?
So Ghostbusters, first of all, it came from a conversation that you and I had, because I said, if I'm going to convince you for a top 10 movie, I want to do Star Wars. And you're like, no, I promised that to somebody else. Or something along those lines you had told me. But you're like, but you said specifically, and it was very specific how you were. You said, if it isn't Star Wars, what would be the next movie that you would choose? And I said, have you done Ghostbusters yet? And you were like, we're doing Ghostbusters.
I mean, it's a great movie. It's such I'm not even going to wait till the end. Ghostbusters is such a great movie. I will say that this time around, I was really surprised. I hadn't sat down and watched the movie start to finish in quite a long time.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh,
so there were some surprises for me, but keep going.
No, so, and also, like, and I mentioned this when we the Critical Mass episode, which will drop tomorrow, which is a non it doesn't matter now by the time you're listening to this.
Yeah, so for the audience members, I just filmed Critical Mass yesterday in our time world. In your time world, if you listen to that episode when it aired, it's been about 2 or 3 months.
Okay, there you go. Thank you for that. But it was another one of those movies. Like when I was very young with my dad, he introduced me to movies. And Goonies and Ghostbusters were two movies that for my dad were like, this is required reading. And I was like, no joke, like 5 or 6 when I saw Ghostbusters the first time. Watching that again, I'm just like, first of all, this is PG. Holy crap. And secondly, how was this ever allowed? I can't even tell you the scenes that I was terrified of as a child. Like, I still remember those scenes being like, even now as a grown-ass man, I'm like, oh, that scene's coming.
So it's funny that you mentioned that it's PG. So it is PG. It's PG for violence, sexual content, language, alcohol, and drug use, which you automatically say, how the fuck is it PG? The movie's released June 7th, 1984. The first PG-13 movie comes out July 1984, the following month. This has got to be one of the last like PG movies that
has to be
PG.
It has to be. If that's the timing, it's got to be. And my God, this movie should definitely have been PG-13.
So 84 is a great year for movies, and I think really the mid to late 80s and most of the 90s is just a great like 15-year span with some of the most phenomenal movies. So I'm looking at the June 7th release date for this. Other movies that were in June, we got Gremlins, Jesus. Conan, Bachelor Party, The Karate Kid. Movies that are left over in theaters from May, we have 16 Candles, Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. Isn't this insane?
It was a golden year.
Right.
This is a golden year, man.
1984 becomes the first time in film history where 4 films grossed over $100 million.
Wow. What were are we talking about what 4 films they are, or are we going to talk about later?
I don't have the exact list here, but I got to imagine it's going to be Ghostbusters for sure. It's probably 16 Candles, Indiana Jones. Yeah, I mean, I don't know, maybe Gremlins or The Karate Kid. I don't think Gremlins got that high. I mean, it's got to...
Might have been Karate Kid.
Might have been Karate Kid, yeah. But so let's go through the stats real quick. 1984 supernatural comedy Ghostbusters starring Dan Aykroyd. Now, to this point, he's only really done the Blues Brothers movie. He was on SNL.
Yeah, SNL.
He did Blues Brothers, and that was kind of it until Ghostbusters. After this, he does Spies Like Us.
It was a good movie.
Yeah, insane first few movies he did, which were, Dragnet, Ghostbusters, the Blues Brothers, Ghostbusters 2, and Spies Like Us, and then Coneheads. Like, this man goes on a streak with his first few movies. Then we had Harold Ramis, who's done basically Stripes and does Ghostbusters 2. He does a few others after that, but that's really it. He's mostly behind the camera.
Yes.
He does a lot of directing. Sigourney Weaver, who has only done Alien before this.
She's a legend. She is a walking, talking legend, Sigourney Weaver.
But it's just crazy. Like, she was like the star of a badass sci-fi film, and now she's like the love interest in the Ghostbusters comedy. That's got to be what sets her up to kind of have this versatile career, because she's done all sorts of stuff.
That woman has range. And it's incredible. And something that I can't stand is when people like see like a newer movie and they're like, oh man, it's so good to see women that are like being badasses and not victims. And you're like, you're saying that now? Have you ever seen the Aliens movies? Like,
oh man, it's so great to see her take the lead on that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And yeah, seeing her in Ghostbusters, she's awesome. She's just an awesome character.
So to round out the Ghostbusters, we have Ernie Hudson, and we'll get into kind of him and how his history of this film is. But his next big role outside of the Ghostbusters, movies was The Crow in '94. So he doesn't.
He played the cop.
Yeah, doesn't really do a whole lot in his career. And then obviously we have Bill Murray, who has a total of 96 acting credits on IMDb, and has gone on. It goes on to become sort of a cult figure. In movies and in pop culture, popping up at weddings, and he's got this kind of legendary status, I would say, in the movie industry.
Yes, he was either beloved or hated, and he his timing is legendary. I think that's his biggest thing is he can say something that's very innocuous, but he will say it in a tone and at a moment that, and he does it in Ghostbusters so many times.
Oh, it's great.
And he has a way of doing it that isn't repeated, that can't be repeated. I feel like, and I know that they were rivals, but I feel like Chevy Chase is another one that's like that as well. Yeah. And they were definite rivals because they were very similar to one another. I've always preferred Bill Murray. But yeah, I absolutely adore the man. And by the way, did you ever hear about the documentary or see the documentary about him popping up in random places?
I heard about it. It got pretty popular for a little while there. I didn't end up watching it, but I did hear about it.
You should watch it. My favorite, and it's very short, is someone was at a frat party having a crazy party, and he heard someone in the kitchen rummaging around, and he went into the kitchen and he saw that the back door was open, and Bill Murray was making a sandwich in his kitchen in their frat house, and he just like waved and ate the sandwich and just walked out. And that was like they interviewed the guy. That's what the documentary was. All these people with these stories.
It's like, great. And I believe each and every one of them. And if it was me, I would have happily let him have a sandwich and been on his way. It's great.
He's magical.
And then let's not forget Rick Moranis, who he's in Spaceballs a few years later, and then obviously Ghostbusters 2. And then I don't know if you know the story about him, but he leaves Hollywood for a period of time. Hopefully he's coming back. I heard he's in Afterlife, but that hasn't been confirmed. When the movie first broke and they were talking about it coming out, I think it was even before we got the trailer. It was when he was in Ryan Reynolds' cell phone commercial. That's when rumors were going around that he was in Aftermath, but then it got quiet and you didn't hear anything.
You mean Afterlife?
Afterlife, yeah. Is that what it's called? Afterlife, okay. Aftermath, something like that.
I was like, wait, what is he talking about?
The movie's runtime is 105 minutes. That's an hour and 45. It's got a budget of 25 to 30 million, somewhere in that range. Box office, 295 million. So we talk a lot in the cast about usually doubling your budget is a good point where the studio's happy. This does 10 times its budget. Yeah. Like, this was a huge blockbuster, people. Like, this is a huge movie.
Exactly. But wait, I have to jump in here. I think an unsung hero of this movie is Annie Potts as Janine.
Annie Potts.
She was also Bo Peep in the Toy Story films.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, and she was absolutely fantastic as Janine.
She was just very good.
That New York City, Long Island kind of accent, and Ghostbusters, what do you want?
That's a good impression. That was a good impression.
Thank you.
So the original script had her character and I screw up all the character names. Egon? Is that how you pronounce it?
Egon. Yep, Egon.
Her and Egon's character were supposed to kind of have a little fling in the original script. A lot of that got cut out. You know, we'll talk about. There's actually a lot of things in this movie that got cut out due to time constraints. But and so producer is Ivan Reitman. It was distributed by Columbia Pictures, directed by Ivan Reitman, and written by Dan Aykroyd and Harold Ramis. So all three of those guys involved in creating this movie. Bill Murray kind of comes on just as a normal actor. He gets hired to be a normal part of the cast like everybody else. But a lot of people think, you know, again, as legend goes on, that he helped create the Ghostbusters. He really didn't. He just got hired to be in the movie.
Yeah, exactly. And from what I heard, there were a lot of issues where he just wouldn't show up at all to like the set, and they would just be like, where is Bill? Where is he? And then he would show up and just be magic. It would just be freaking magic.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of the reputation he has, right? Like, he won't sign a contract. You know, you just got to trust that he'll be there on day one. He is notorious, at least early on in his career, for being a bit of a flake. But he is who he is, I guess. It's based on a screenplay written by Dan Aykroyd, which is actually based on his family's fascination with paranormal. Him and John Belushi traveling through space and time, battling supernatural threats. That was the original idea for the script. and it was set in the future. And the idea was that the Ghostbusters would be just like the firefighters and the cops and the ambulance service. They would just, you'd call them up, they'd come to your house, and they would catch the ghost, and it'd be him and Jim Belushi, or John Belushi, excuse me.
God, what do you, Jim? Ew.
I want to see this movie. I want to see this original script get made.
I mean, I'm definitely interested. I would watch if it came out. I would watch it. I mean, yes, absolutely. I'm just so glad we got what we got.
Yo, absolutely. The tagline for the movie, there was actually several taglines, especially as it got the re-releases and stuff. But the two most famous are "Who You Gonna Call?" Ghostbusters, and "They Ain't Afraid of No Ghost," which is a line from the same song. It's nominated for Oscars in the Best Visual Effects and Best Music. It's nominated for a Golden Globe for Best Motion Picture in a Comedy and Musical category, Best Performance by an Actor in a Motion Picture in a Comedy or Musical category for Bill Murray, and Best Original Song in a Motion Picture for the famous theme song. The song track is nominated for a Grammy Award for Best Album, and I mean, I don't think it won a lot of those stuff, but it definitely got nominated for a heck of a lot.
Yeah, I didn't even know it was nominated, to be honest with you, because it just seems so goofy, so quirky, so ridiculous. But it's just, and the visual effects for that time period, like the ghosts, wow, just wow.
Yeah, so there's obviously so much around this movie, and typically what we would do is just kind of run through the plot, almost scene by scene. But I don't really think that's necessary here. I think that there's going to be a ton of scenes that maybe we want to talk about, not in any particular order. But I want to talk about all the stuff surrounding this movie, because there is so much out there and so much history about it. So, just wherever the conversation takes you, man, let's roll with it. The first thing I kind of want to talk about, we touched on a little earlier, was Ernie Hudson's relationship with the movie Ghostbusters. Ernie Hudson plays Winston.
Yep.
He's the fourth. Yeah, he's the fourth Ghostbuster. He kind of comes on about halfway through the movie, which was one thing that surprised me, because again, I hadn't seen the movie from start to finish in a long time, and I knew he got hired on, but I always thought it happened like early, like as soon as they opened. It's really like halfway through the movie.
It is. It is. And that's something that always stuck with me, even as a young person. Like, why is he so late, like in the movie? I mean, the way they did it, it kind of works. And I love his character. I love Winston, but I know there was a lot around that. I know that from what I've heard that he was not happy about that. And wasn't Eddie Murphy originally supposed to be him?
Yeah, so this is what I found. First, let me read you this little article I got here. It says Ernie Hudson went through approximately 5 auditions for the character. According to him, an early version of the script gave Winston a larger role as an Air Force demolitions expert with an elaborate backstory. Excited by the part, he agreed to the job for half his usual salary. Now, what happens is the original script is written for Eddie Murphy. Eddie Murphy turns it down to do Beverly Hills Cop. They get Ernie Hudson to sign on, but at this point, the studio's like, well, if it's not going to be Eddie Murphy, if it's not going to be another big SNL alum, then give Bill Murray more screen time. So the night before shooting begins, he's given a new script with a greatly reduced role. Reitman told him the studio wanted to expand Murray's part. Later on, he said he regretted the marginalization of his character from the original script and felt Ghostbusters did not improve his career as he had hoped or been promised. In a 2014 interview, he said, quote, "I love the character and he's got some great lines, but I felt the guy was just kind of there. I'm very thankful that fans appreciate the Winston character, but it's always been a bit of a frustration. Kind of a love-hate thing for me, I guess."
Can I just say, what a classy person. What he said was the best way he could have said that, because I loved his character, and I'm glad that he can recognize the fact that people do genuinely love his character. But, I think about the way he said that, and I say, you know what, he's right. I really think he's right. I do love the character, but I think he was very marginalized. And I think that at times he's just there. I mean, like he had like, Ray, next time someone asks you if you're a god, you say yes. Like that line delivered by him in his bewilderment, because he's the odd man out. We needed that. We needed the odd man out, but it's just sad that it was like that, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, in retrospect, there's definitely some things that I think could have been done differently to improve upon that character. But in retrospect, to be honest with you, I think there's a lot that could have been done to improve this movie. This movie is a little bonkers in a lot of ways. But with that being said, I don't blame him for being a little upset about it.
Sure.
Like you said, I do appreciate that he recognizes that it's not the fans' fault, and his character goes on to be has a way larger role in the animated show.
Yes.
Which also has a much larger following and kind of expands the Ghostbusters universe in a way that the second movie didn't.
Yep.
So yeah, I mean, good on him, and hopefully, I would love to see him come back in Afterlife. But we'll see, I guess.
I think it's confirmed. They confirmed all the originals except for Harold Ramis for obvious reasons. He had scheduling conflicts. Was that too soon? Sorry. That was the critical mass coming. That was the critical mass coming out of me right there. I'm sorry. No, but they've confirmed it. They just haven't fully confirmed Rick Moranis, and I don't think they fully confirmed Sigourney Weaver. But they definitely, they definitely confirmed the three. Bill Murray, and their action figures are already out, so that kind of spoiled that for the three of them. They're all white-haired and chunky in their Ghostbuster uniforms.
So one of the other big things I want to talk about, and it came to light, I think, in the Netflix show. I don't know if you watched. Did you watch that?
Yes.
Netflix has a great series of like the movies that made us, and they did Ghostbusters on one of them. So you got a lot of cool information there. But the name Ghostbusters was not available to them up until really during shooting. In fact, several scenes actually got shot twice using the Ghostbusters name, and then I think there was another Ghost Breakers is I think what they were going to go with. So the name Ghostbusters, the title Ghostbusters was already taken, and a long legal battle ensued before the makers secured the rights. Initial shooting even had 2 takes of signs being put on outsides of the firehouse, one saying Ghostbusters and one saying Ghost Breakers. Ultimately, the filmmakers saw this as too much work to shoot everything twice and settled on their first choice, hoping the title would be cleared in time. Wow. Could you imagine?
Yeah, dude. I and that show you brought up, the movies that made us, that when they were talking about shooting that scene with all the extras shouting Ghostbusters, Ghostbusters, he's like, you want me to shoot that again? Like, no. I'm not, like, we're not doing that. Like,
right.
It's wild.
So you said you watched this again. What have you seen this regularly all the way through?
Ghostbusters?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I own it. If people still have DVDs, I have the DVDs. I had all the toys as a kid. I watched the cartoon as a kid, and then I got my daughter. I had her watch Ghostbusters, the first and second one, and I was like, some parts I was a little like, okay, or she'd ask me questions that I didn't want to answer.
Nice.
But like, I've watched this movie the first one especially, so many times. I don't understand the hate the second one gets, but anyway, the first one is always going to be the best.
I do, of course, but honestly, I think the two movies are very, very similar. They have the same kind of vibe, and oftentimes I get them confused as to which one was the first one.
Yeah, that does happen. I just think it's fun. There's so much fun. You know what I mean? Like,
somebody, I don't know if you know the story about the slime in the second one. Somebody really hates Bill Murray. Like he apparently only signed on for the second one. He initially wanted the name of the second one to be Ghostbusters The End or Ghostbusters The Finale or something like that, so that he didn't have to do any more after that. And one of his only demands, because he gets slimed in the first one, the Slimer hits him and he gets slimed, and he hated it. So one of his only demands was no slime in the second one. And the entire second one is based around pink slime.
Yeah, exactly. And what's funny, too, is you saying that, and one scene that made me laugh out loud and makes me laugh out loud every time is right at the end when the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man explodes, and all of them are getting up and they're covered in marshmallow and they're all shook, right? Peter just walks from off camera, barely touched, and everyone's like, "Are you okay?" He's like, "I'm fine." Like, but he's so dismissive of what I'm fine.
Yeah, that was a whole big thing on set, I guess. So they used like shaving cream for that. Yeah. And true story, they said Reitman says this in one of his interviews. He says that they had a 75-pound bag of shaving cream, and they wanted to put Bill Murray underneath it and just open it so it would dump on him, so it would look like that. And he was like, "This is gonna hurt. This is gonna hurt." And they were like, "No, it's not. It's shaving cream." And he's like, "But it's 75 pounds. It's like the whole feather and the stone thing. Like it's still 75 pounds." So they cut it in half and had another crewman underneath it. And he said, if he can't stay on his feet, then I don't have to put any of this on me. And Reitman agreed. And 40 pounds dropping on top of you, the guy fell to the floor. Oh, so that's why Bill Murray's character has no shaving cream, or pretty much no shaving cream on him.
Yeah. Oh my God, that is a great story, and
isn't that insane?
That's incredible.
So we talked about Slimer. I want to touch on that a little bit, because obviously, so he's not called Slimer at any point in this movie. No. He doesn't pick up the name until the cartoon. Yep. And it was originally this ghost was supposed to be modeled after John Belushi.
Yes, that I knew. Yeah,
which I don't understand. I mean, I get why they wanted to do that, but I don't see John Belushi in this at all. Do you?
No, I don't. I get it, because like he passed away and he was supposed to be part of it, and it'd be funny to bring him back as a ghost because he's dead. And I guess he was a big slob. I don't know. You know what I mean? Like, I don't really know that. I don't know if that's true. And Slimer doesn't look like John Belushi at all.
Yeah, so I don't think so. They said it was like after his character from Animal House, which I don't know.
Yeah.
Whatever, I guess. It's the second highest grossing film of '84 behind Beverly Hills Cop. So it looks like Eddie Murphy made the right decision there. Yep. But it was the highest grossing comedy ever. Now it's not even in the top 50. Do you want to take a guess at any of the movies in the top 10? And I will say this is the top 10 highest grossing comedies. A lot of these movies, using the word comedies is a stretch. So keep that in mind. Okay. Go ahead.
I'm going to say Old School's on that list.
Old School is not. I'm looking at the top 25. Wow. Old School's not even on the top 25.
Of comedies.
Comedies, yep.
Oh my God. Geez, if Anchorman?
Nope.
What is going on?
Insane, right? Are you ready for this? Starting with, what do you want me to start with? Let's start with 10. I don't want to do all 10.
Yeah, let's do 10.
Hi, Mom? I've never even heard of that. Inside Out.
Oh, is it a Pixar movie?
The Secret Life of Pets, Shrek 2, Despicable Me 2, Despicable Me 3, Toy Story 3, Toy Story 4, Minions, and number 1 is Incredibles 2. Those are all Pixar films.
What the fuck? I'm just going to say it. Those are all great movies, but wrong category.
I will say number 13 is Deadpool, which is spot on. Great movie.
That's
Men in Black 3 is on here. This is ridiculous. This is
what a stupid list.
Stupidest list ever.
Whoever made that list, you're stupid. Well, we're trying to. I'm trying to pitch this to get into your top 10.
It's true. That's right. That was a dumb statement. We should make our own list, of course.
We're doing that.
Yeah. So we got to touch on the ghost sex scene. What the fuck? I don't remember that scene being in it when I watched it as a kid.
The ghost sex scene? Oh, yes.
And Aykroyd. He has a dream that he is in a I don't know, Napoleon type
medieval
outfit?
Not medieval.
He's in a castle, but he's in like a Napoleon, like Bonaparte outfit. And a very attractive female ghost goes down on him. And that's it. It's never talked about, never referenced again.
It's during the montage of all the jobs they were getting.
What the hell?
Yeah, that scene was one that my daughter had a question about, and I'm like, she's helping him get changed, and he's very appreciative of that. And she goes, "Oh, okay." And she dropped it, and I was like, "All right, cool. We don't need to revisit this again." But anyway, yeah,
I mean, never address this again.
I think you said that this movie is bonkers, and I think this is definitely one of those scenes that adds to that. But I also think, like in my mind, because I overanalyze things because I've got a lot of problems, is that they're really showing how busy they are and how tired they are, where his job and his repressed sexual urges that he can't, because they're so busy. So they're so busy he hasn't even had time to jerk off. And what's he do all the time? He's with ghosts. So now he's having and that's the Freud in me right there.
Right. Yeah, no, I get you. So
from the far reaches of the galaxy to an internet location near you, we're Don'tForgetATowel.com, your daily source for geeky pop culture news, reviews, interviews, and so much more. So as you're hitchhiking your way through the universe, don't forget to travel safe, and don't forget a towel.
Need more context on your favorite movie?
Is Obama.
As okay.
Senator Obama.
Ever wonder why they did or didn't do that thing or include that scene?
This is prime. Like, this is quality entertainment.
Check out Gutsy Media Podcast as my friends and I take a deep dive into everything from blockbusters to indie films.
The weakest apple cider bitch beers.
Follow us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. That's Gutsy Media Podcast for everything movies.
Right. Yeah, no, I get you. So, like I mentioned before, there's a lot of stuff that was cut out of this movie. There was a whole sub story that was supposed to happen where Dan Aykroyd's character has a ghost love interest, and he meets the ghost love interest as part of them getting rid of ghosts from old like Civil War forts and stuff. So this scene is supposed to be a scene from that storyline. Well, they had to trim the movie down, so they cut out everything, but they, for whatever reason, found this scene so hilarious, they left it in. It's one, it's not that funny. Two, it makes no sense with nothing else around it.
Yeah, I never. Wow, that changes the context of that scene from what I said. Like, I'm talking about me really hoping for the best there.
I want to see like an uncut version. Do you think it's like a? I know Star Wars every 5 years releases a new cut with 10 seconds more film. Do you think do they have multiple versions of Ghostbusters? They've got to, right?
I mean, not that I've ever heard of. I've honestly never heard of a director's cut or anything of Ghostbusters.
Like an extended cut or something. Yeah,
I don't think it exists. I want it to, but I don't think it exists.
I would say that there was a VHS that was released in 1985. $79.95 is what the VHS of Ghostbusters went on sale in 85. That's insane.
Yeah, dude, that's wild. I didn't even pay that much for the DVD.
Now you see somebody with a VHS and you think they're crazy. Like, you must be insane.
Yeah. I recently hooked up a VCR for someone so they could use VHS tapes that they had.
Did you really?
Yeah.
Dan, we're going to get you a DVD player for Christmas, buddy.
No, it wasn't Dan. I had to do it for someone. I love how you went to Dan, though.
I just assumed.
My mother-in-law. She wanted to watch some old VHS tapes, and I was like, I'll try. And I'm not
really sure how this works anymore.
I got it to work, though. So
wow. That's impressive, man.
Thank you.
Okay,
but
so
anyway.
A couple other the big stories that come out of this. Let's talk about why it's taken so long to get a third film. I got tons of information on this and some interesting stuff that I found out. So shout out to Screen Rant, not an affiliate of ours at all, but they got a great article on why it's taken so long to get a Ghostbusters 3. So obviously, like we had mentioned before, Bill Murray does not want to do any sequels. And the way the movie is set up in 1984, which you would never, ever, 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 ever see now, is the actors, not only the main cast, received a % of the gross from the film, which is insane. Bill Murray's estimated to have gotten between $20 and $30 million off of this film by itself. In addition to that, they also got like creative rights. They basically, the four of them owned the rights to the Ghostbusters. So any sort of, new films, marketing, licensing, it all had to go through them.
All four of them. Ernie Hudson too.
Yep. No, I don't know. It wasn't Ernie Hudson. It was Ivan.
God.
Yeah,
Ivan
Reitman.
Reitman.
Screwed out of everything. Ivan, Ramos, Aykroyd, and Murray. So Aykroyd pursues a sequel up until the 2010 or so, where they end up doing the video game. So we get the Ghostbusters video game. It's released in 2009. It features narrative contributions from Ramis and Murray. And in fact, this is what kind of spurs them talking about possibly doing a film in the future. Yeah. Obviously, Murray and Ramis don't get along at this point.
Yeah, they weren't speaking.
Right. And we'll talk about that next, because that's a huge reason why this didn't get made also. But they have this whole idea so that the video game comes out, and for all intent and purposes, they say this is basically what the sequel would have been. This is kind of what the ideas we had. Following Ramos's death in 2014, Reitman is determined we're done. We're going to make this happen. So he convinces all of them to sell the rights to Columbia. Now they were the producers of the original film. He spent 2 weeks trying to convince Murray. He gets him to do it. And they are hell bent on making some sort of ghost core, like some sort of Ghostbusters franchise. So they greenlit the remake with the all-female cast. It doesn't go well.
I want to talk about the all-female one for a second. Can we just take a minute
Absolutely.
or two? I went to the theater for this opening night because I'm such a Ghostbusters fan, and I love that cast of ladies. I love that cast. I enjoyed the movie. It was not a Ghostbusters movie, if you're following what I'm saying. Like, to me, that was a really funny movie. I enjoyed that movie. I own that movie. It's great. I laughed in the theater, but I also the entire time was just like, this isn't Ghostbusters. You know what I mean?
Right. And I agree with you 100%. I think that's the problem with the movie. I think you have this 300-pound gorilla in the room that is the Ghostbusters, the first two movies, and the third movie that we've been waiting, 3 decades for. And
is this.
Yeah, and you give us, again, I'm with you, a good movie, love the cast. I love each and every one of those ladies, and I think the movie's good, but looking at it as a Ghostbusters property, it's not. It doesn't live up to that sort of. I mean, we're talking about a movie that did 10 times its budget. This is a blockbuster. This is a mammoth thing to be living in the shadows of. So I don't blame them for not hitting the ball out of the park. I blame the studios for thinking that it was going to be possible. I think the closest they're going to get is a third movie. You have to have a movie that's going to acknowledge what has happened. You can't ask the audience that's a fan of this franchise, okay, ignore everything you love. We're going to start fresh. That's stupid.
But I have to say this, though, is what I appreciate about it is, and I'm sure we're going to talk more about it later, so I'm just going to kind of tickle it, is I love when you tickle. I know you do. Is that I was so waiting for this that when I saw the trailer with Paul Rudd and the new movie, I visibly wept. I wept. I mean, like tears. That scene where Ecto 1 whips around the corner and the gunner chair pops out.
Yeah,
and she just starts firing off. I'm just like, dude, tears streaming down my face just seeing Ecto 1. And when you put together, who her grandfather is and everything, I already know. I've guessed the plot of this movie, and I don't even care. like
it's gonna be great.
Mad.
I think Paul Rudd is such a perfect person to put in this movie. And when I saw, like, I thoroughly enjoyed the glimpses of the Ecto-1 and all that stuff. But for me, it was one of the most recent trailers where we got to see the little marshmallows and we get to see Zool chase him through the department store. I'm like, this is insane. I'm ecstatic for this. Well, I hope it makes sense though.
Yeah. Do you want me to say what my guess is? Do you care, or should I just not?
Go for it. Go for it. Let's get it on the record right now. What is your guess?
On the record, I am guessing that Harold Ramis's character Egon, after the events of New York City, does retire from the Ghostbusters and continues his research in Zool because he thinks Gozer is going to come back. So he actually finds a portal to Gozer in the middle of nowhere, buys a house out there, and studies this until his untimely death. And now he leaves the house to his grandchildren, as well as Gozer's coming back. And I think that there's going to be a really end game type of battle, but with the next generation. And finally, she's going to end Grandpa's work. And I think that that's what Paul Rudd specifically says, do you remember what happened in New York City in 1984? He says that flat out.
It's true.
You've got the imagery when they're going down that like elevator thing that looks like a lot of Hittite stuff, like Gozer and big in Sumeria. Gozer's huge in Sumeria. Huge. But like, and then you see the Hellhound Zool that you just said, chasing Paul Rudd. And to me, that all lines up. If I'm wrong, I don't care. If I'm right, I'm going to be just as happy.
Well, Bill Murray, if you're listening, and Rocco got it right, you owe him a pop-in. I want you to stop by Rocco's house and make a sandwich.
I would love it. I don't even care. Just take pictures of him while he made a sandwich. That's all I would do. I'll leave him alone.
So, according to Screen Rant, by 2013, Ivan Reitman was set to return as a director of a third movie, and he even pitched it to Sony on a script called Ghostbusters Alive Again. Written by Ethan Coen, who does Holmes and Watson, this draft once again featured Venkman quickly dying and becoming a ghost, while a group of Columbia students end up taking the Ghostbusters mantle. Venkman would have had a son named Chris, with Charlie Day and Jesse Eisenberg in line to play the role. Zach Galifianakis, Rebel Wilson, and Jonah Hill were being considered for the rest of the team, and Sacha Baron Cohen being eyed for the villain duties. Development was going well on this version until Harold Ramis became ill and sadly passed away in 2014. Reitman decided to step down following this, as he felt he couldn't make a new sequel without the original 4 team members. What?
Yes, and that lends credence more to this movie because technically they are doing it with Harold Ramis. They're just doing it with his memory. So he will be in this movie.
Can we just talk about the possibilities of having
Charlie Day,
Zach Galifianakis, Charlie Day, Jonah Hill? I don't know about Jesse Eisenberg. Rebel Wilson would have been great. Sacha Baron Cohen as the villain? That would have been awesome.
I want to see this movie. I do want to see this movie. Like, I wish they would have made this.
Yeah.
Like Bill Murray as the ghost. That would be funny, especially after seeing him in Zombieland, with what he did there. Do you have any regrets? Garfield.
It's such a great line because we all regret that.
Everyone that's ever seen it. But no, I that sounds great, and I love Charlie Day. I'm a huge Charlie Day fan. That would have been amazing.
Yeah, I think he's hilarious. So let's talk about it then. I mean, Murray and Ramis, they're best friends at this point. They're truly like best friends. They've worked together a ton of times. They're on Stripes. They did Ghostbusters. They do Ghostbusters 2, and they do Groundhog Day in '93.
A classic.
So this is the height of Bill Murray's career, really. This is where he is the most wanted man. And listen, it gets to everybody, right? It's going to get to everybody's head. I don't care who you are. When people are basically telling you that everything you touch is gold, you're going to start valuing your time a little bit more, and you're going to start being a little more condescending to people. And by all reports, Murray is an absolute pain on set. And the two of them fight. and they have words. And after the movie wraps, Murray refuses to ever work with Ramis again. And they don't talk. So keep in mind, he is the godfather to Ramis's daughter. And they've been friends for over 15 years. They don't speak again for 21 years. During this time, Murray refuses to discuss Ramis, while Ramis insisted that he'd repeatedly had dreams about the pair becoming friends again. Oh my God.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so sad. That's just so sad to hear that. It really is. So
starting in 2010, Ramis gets sick and makes public his autoimmune disease. Murray's brother convinces him to go visit Ramis on his deathbed in 2014. I don't know if you know the story about this, but Ramis's daughter recounts the story afterwards that Murray more or less lands in Ramis's hometown, has no idea where he lives, goes to the local police station, and says, "I'm Bill Murray, and I'm here to see
Harold Ramis."
Harold Ramis. So he gets a police escort to Harold Ramis's house, and which sounds just like Murray. Ramis at this point has lost most of his ability to speak, but the two sit together chatting, Murray doing most of the talking, obviously, for hours. When Ramis finally succumbed to his illness in February of 2014, Murray had this to say: "Harold Ramis and I together did the National Lampoon's show off Broadway, Meatballs, Stripes, Caddyshack, Ghostbusters, and Groundhog's Day. He earned his keep on this planet, and God bless him." He then added a heartwarming eulogy at the Academy Awards just a few weeks later.
Wow. That's incredible.
It's incredible. It's incredible. And what's sad is, listen, I am not somebody who will always take the higher ground. But I will say, in my defense, that since growing into adulthood, and especially since having kids, you learn to let go of some of the stuff that's just not important. And I don't know what took place on the set. I don't know what Murray went through. Maybe he truly felt wronged in some horrible way. But to go 21 years without talking to somebody, especially somebody you were that close to, that's sad to hear.
It is. And especially when you made such magic together. I mean, Caddyshack, Groundhog's Day, Stripes, Ghostbusters. I mean, we're not talking about indie films that no one gives a shit about. We're talking about some of the most classic comedies that are, and these are all, I call them required reading. These are all required reading, these movies. Like, as my children get older, like my son's 2 now, but once he starts getting to like my daughter's age, like 7, 8 years old, like I'm slowly doing with my daughter, it's like, okay, sit down, you're watching Caddyshack with me. Like, I'll explain some things, I won't explain other things, but like, we're doing this. It's required reading. And then to know that they just didn't speak for so long. I think Bill Murray did the right thing, though, by going to him, and then I think delivering the eulogy, and then another thing at the Academy Awards. I think that shows a lot of class and humility, because you could have been like, fuck that guy. We didn't talk for years. Fuck him. But he didn't.
I think he did the right thing. I won't go as far as saying that I think it was classy. I think it was the right thing to do. To me, there's no other option. I think he should have taken the high ground earlier, and that's something that he'll have to live with. But it is what it is. The effects of this movie are so far-reaching. Dedicated fan following. The success of Ghostbusters launched a multi-billion-dollar media franchise. This includes popular animated television series, The Real Ghostbusters in 1986, a sequel series, Extreme Ghostbusters in 1997, video games, board games, comic books, clothing, music, haunted attractions. Ghostbusters was followed in 1989 by Ghostbusters 2, which fared well less financially and critically. Attempts to develop a second sequel paused following Ramis' death in 2014. In 2016, we got the reboot, also called Ghostbusters, which came with mixed reviews, and then a second sequel to the 1984 film Ghostbusters Afterlife is scheduled for release in 2021. I also want to talk about real quick, in 2015, it was selected for preservation by the Library of Congress in the National Film Registry, which is a huge deal. I mean, you talk about the number of movies that come out every year, it's in the thousands, and probably more than that. But every year, Library of Congress selects, I want to say it's like a dozen that they're going to preserve, meaning that they are going to make sure a copy of that lasts as long as humanly possible. And they selected the Ghostbusters. That's huge.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, I think that it's I don't even know how to describe it. The movie, it's a comedy. It's a tongue-in-cheek love story. Because it's not a real love story at all by any means, but it's more that tongue-in-cheek, like, and then she was out of my life and I left. Like, just like the ridiculousness of his pursuits. I'll go to her apartment and check her out. I'll check out her apartment. But anyway,
cats and dogs living together,
mass hysteria. But again, like, we're doing it right now and we're laughing, and I think that's important and that needs to be preserved.
So there's a couple things that I found out in my research that I really want to tell you and the audience, because I think there's just great, hilarious little anecdotes. When they were writing the script, Ramis' character, he decided that Ramis' character was going to be the brains, Aykroyd's character was going to be the heart, and Murray's character was going to be the mouth. And I was like, that's perfect. That's exactly how they are.
Yeah, that's exactly it.
Comes across perfectly. Other actors considered for roles. Here we go. The leading roles, largely believed to be a backup to Bill Murray if he didn't show up, was going to be Michael Keaton, Chevy Chase, Tom Hanks, Robin Williams, Steve Guttenberg, Richard Pryor, Christopher Walken, John Lithgow, Christopher Lloyd, and Jeff Goldblum. Now, I want to preface that by saying that usually when movies reach legendary status and as years go on, every actor and their mom comes out of the woodwork and says, "Oh, I was considered for that role," or "I was offered that role."
Yeah, always.
And it's not always true. So that's a long list. Let's take that with a grain of salt. But some of those people, I mean, I wouldn't mind seeing a Ghostbusters with Robin Williams.
Oh my God. I don't even know how. Oh, Robin Williams. I mean, just that fast talking, wild. Oh man.
It'd be insane. Or John Lithgow. I think he'd be a good like scientist type in a Ghostbusters role.
Yeah, I could see that. Especially he was much younger in that moment. I just keep thinking of him from the show Dexter. If you've ever seen that, I always have that in my head.
He's a great actor. If you watch any of his interviews, I mean, he was classically trained. His father was in the theater for a really long time, and he's good in comedy roles. But if you really see him in like a good dramatic role, he's a phenomenal actor. Like he's arguably one of the best actors of our generation, I think.
Absolutely. Just a few years ago, he was in Rochester shooting movie scenes at the Big M in Gates.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, they shut the whole thing down. It was on the news. Like you had no access, and there were just camera crews and everything. And they
How did I not know about this? Holy shit.
Yeah, they shot a whole bunch of scenes. I don't remember what the movie was. But they shot a whole bunch of grocery store scenes at the Big M in Gates. Really,
is it like the only Big M in the world now?
Might be. Yeah.
There's only one left alive, and we got to go to that one.
But people are they're loyal to that store. But anyway, yeah, John Lithgow was here. It was pretty wild.
Other actors considered for the role of Dana, apparently Daryl Hannah and Julia Roberts both auditioned for it. I could see Julia Roberts. I don't know about Daryl Hannah.
I was going to say the exact same thing.
John Candy was offered the role as the mayor, but he had some pretty unique takes on it. He wanted to do it with a German accent and thought the mayor should have like 2 bloodhounds. And when Reitman said, that's not the direction they were going to go, he turned the role down, and they ended up getting the guy that they did.
I think that guy served his purpose well for what you needed in that role.
He's not much of a role.
Yeah, I think though that you needed like the bureaucrat, because I think Bill Murray, Pete Venkman had the best. If you're right, but if we're right, you've saved the lives of millions of registered voters instead of people. He says registered voters, and then the way that character's face turns, the mayor. I'm like, oh man, like that guy was perfect. I think just for that scene.
Paul Rubin, who famously plays Pee-wee, was originally intended to play Gozer. There's gonna be more of a business-like, he's gonna be more of a business-like, devil-looking demon, but passed on the role and later changed to more of a dramatist look. They wanted to, they were inspired by David Bowie for the look of Gozer in the pilot. So I could totally see that. In developing the Marshmallow Man, he wanted a combination of the Michelin Man and the Pillsbury Doughboy. Perfect. Nailed it.
Yeah. Nailed it. Absolutely nailed it.
And then just a few other funny things I thought. Lewis, who plays the Keymaster, also gets locked out of his apartment several times in the movie.
Yes, that's incredible. That is wildly... It's wonderful. And what I love is that she was the gatekeeper and he was the Keymaster. And as a child... that went right over my head. Right. And then as an adult, like, okay, so they have sex.
Right. Like, just insane.
They have to have sex in order to open this portal for Gozer to come through. And like, as a kid, I was like, okay, so he's got a key and she has the gate and then they turn the key and Gozer comes through. I get it. Like as a kid. And then like, as an adult, I'm like, they fuck.
What's crazy is that in the second movie, I always assumed that her and Bill Murray had the baby. That's somebody else's kid. Bill Murray that's not Bill Murray's kid in that second movie.
No, it's not. It's absolutely not.
So what? They're basically like dating at this point, and then they break up and then they get back together. And in the meantime, she's a kid.
Do you want me to tell you?
This is insane.
Do you want me to tell you?
We just gotta do it. We gotta do the second one. We just gotta do the second one.
Well, so in Ghostbusters 2, they actually have a whole conversation where she's like, it was fun in the beginning. You were a Ghostbuster and I was doing my thing. And then when you started referring to me as the old ball and chain, then I just wanted out. And she left and met some other dude who got her pregnant. And then he didn't stick around. But what's important there is that Bill Murray has a scene where he's holding the baby Oscar, which is just a terrible name for a baby. But anyway, so he's holding the baby and he's like, oh, look at him. He's a coconut. And I when I had my daughter, my first child, I always said that was going to be the first thing I say to my kids. When I held my daughter for the very first time, I go, look at her. She's a coconut. And it's the first thing I ever said to my daughter. I actually remember it.
Their pitch to Columbia, they had 1 minute to give a pitch to the Columbia executives, and all he said was ghost janitors in New York City. And they said, sold. How much do you need? And he'd at that point only done Stripes, which cost $10 million. So he said, 30 million. Figured 3 times as much as Stripes. And he's like, cool, go make your movie.
Wow.
Insane. How this movie got made. This movie would never get made today. Never.
No, not
and then
at all.
The last piece of information.
Even though it is, like, it is being made.
Right. Well, that's because it's got a franchise behind it now.
Of course.
The last piece of information I uncovered, which I thought was perfect, was what Ivan Reitman was doing prior to Ghostbusters. In 1982, Reitman is working alongside others planning their next film, okay? And this is when Aykroyd shows up, gives him the script for Ghostbusters, and he leaves the project he's on to do Ghostbusters. They had just commissioned a novel to be made into a movie. That novel was The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
What?
Isn't that crazy?
They were working on the movie
they were working on taking not only Reitman. Only Reitman was attached to that project. And all it says that he was working alongside other people to convert the novel into a movie. When Aykroyd shows up and says, I got this thing I'm working on, and he was like, cool, sold. I'm in with you.
Wow. That's wild. That is, I did not know that.
I want to see Ivan Reitman's Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
Absolutely. I want to see, I love seeing anything that Ivan Reitman has done. And I love the fact that his son, by the way, is doing Afterlife. I think that's very important.
Yeah, I think that's a nice homage. I mean, honestly, I hope he's a good director, because it'd be pretty shitty if he wasn't, and then this movie turns out like crap. But if he is a good director, then it's nice homage and it's going to work out good. But without further ado, let's get into our questions. Not that they're really necessary in this case.
Fair enough.
All right. So as I said before, we've developed 3 questions. It has been backbreaking to have to come up with new ones every season. I mean, I'm really working my kids' fingers to the bone, but just and remember that when you hear these.
Those little tax shelters.
So typically we use these 3 questions to determine if the movie that we're covering is a good movie. Spoilers, it is.
Yeah.
So question number 1, does the progress and rhythm of the movie fit?
Yes, I say a lot. I love a good 80s montage. Which
the montage is so underrated.
It really is, and it shows like, what I think what's important is that we get their first call and we get the whole call.
Mm-hmm.
So we know how a call goes from beginning to end. And then we don't really see a full call ever again the entire movie. We just get the montage of them getting the call. So now as the person watching, you can understand what these calls entail. Job too big, no fee too too big. I think, yes, the progression of the characters, the progression of the story was right on.
So I got to split hairs on this question. In my opinion, the progress and the rhythm of the movie is bonkers. Okay. If I'm watching this movie without knowing the blockbuster that it is and the legacy that it leaves behind it, if I'm just watching this movie as a first timer, I'm seeing a bunch of scientists discover for the first time that ghosts exist. They even have a whole conversation. Like, can you imagine? We just had an interaction. Like, this is crazy. And their first thought is to develop a 1-800 number that people can call to rid themselves of ghosts that up until this point they had no proof were real. It's insane. It's an insane concept for a movie. So to me, that progress and rhythm is bonkers. But as I said, I'm going to split hairs here because the question says, does it fit? And for whatever freaking reason, it does.
Yeah.
For whatever reason, in this movie, you suspend belief and you go, yeah, of course. Of course they make a Ghostbusters and rent out an old firehouse and drive around New York City in an ambulance that looks like a hearse. Of course they do.
But it's so American. We just discovered this. How can we use it to make money? How can we monetize it? Right. Everyone has 3 mortgages on their house nowadays. like, and then the crushing debt of being an American. I really think that you feel that.
I love how they mortgage his house just to get some space to do this. Why don't you just do it in his house? Or even better, you mortgage his house, but then you put it like a full arcade on the 2nd floor. Did you see that in the background? There's like a full arcade. Like, what? You didn't have to buy that stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Like, none of that is absolutely necessary at all. But then it shows how much money they're making, how successful they're becoming. And I like when they do that. Like, they're not just like, and then they became so successful. Like, you see the things in the background and you be like, okay, so these guys are making money right now. But yeah, I think, dude, I really think the pacing works for this movie. It just does.
Question number 2. What, if any, part of the film speaks to you and why?
Need more context on your favorite movie?
Is Obama.
As okay.
Senator Obama.
Ever wonder why they did or didn't do that thing or include that scene?
This is prime. Like, this is quality entertainment.
Check out Gutsy Media Podcast as my friends and I take a deep dive into everything from blockbusters to indie films.
The weakest apple cider bitch beers.
Follow us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. That's Gutsy Media Podcast for everything movies.
From the far reaches of the galaxy to an internet location near you, we're Don'tForgetATowel.com, your daily source for geeky pop culture news, reviews, interviews, and so much more. So as you're hitchhiking your way through the universe, don't forget to travel safe, and don't forget a towel.
I remember the scene that it's probably, I think it's the most badass scene. They all pretty much know they're going to die. And he's like, Stick, heat him up. You know, let's show this prehistoric bitch how we do things downtown. And something about Bill Murray saying that last part, like, let's show this prehistoric bitch how we do things downtown. I remember being a kid and just being like, yeah,
get him.
But like, you know, they all know that they're going to die, you know, and they're kind of saying their goodbyes to each other. Like, it's been a pleasure working with you. Like, I don't know why that scene spoke to me, but you get these four idiots, really.
Right.
They're four idiots. The entire fate of our universe is now in their hands. And they actually choose to do the selfless thing. Mm-hmm. And I think that really spoke to me in this movie.
Yeah, well said. I mean, for me, what spoke to me about Ghostbusters is really the friendship that's there. You know, I touched on it earlier about how they were trying to write the characters as being like the heart, the brains, and the mouth. And that sort of approach, I think what you get here is you get four very realistic people, realistic characters. They're not those cookie cutter, like, okay, we got to have the jock, and then we got to have the smart girl, and then we got to have the good looking girl. You know, they're not cookie cutter. They're real humans, and they feel very real. And the fact that they get along despite their differences in a very real manner. I mean, they don't have conversations that are like, oh, okay, then while you go to the gym, I'm going to go read my science book. Like stupid shit like that you see in movies now. They're just real people. And that speaks to you, I think, a lot, that you can relate to them despite the crazy circumstance they're in because they feel so real.
Exactly. And how many times have we been Winston Zedmore sitting there being people asking you questions like, if it has a steady paycheck, I'll believe whatever you want me to believe.
Right.
And then like the two, like they're just like, you're hired. Welcome to the team. like, you know, I think that also, like, just like you said, they're real, they're humans, they're human beings. And I genuinely think that Peter's character is how a lot of cynical people would be when they finally see a ghost for the first time. Like, hello, hi, like in the beginning, like, well, you know, where are you from? You know, like that kind of thing. It really felt very, very real. And then, you know, they're these big, brave Ghostbusters. What do? The first time they see a ghost, they run screaming out of the library. We'll call you back. and I think that there's a lot of reality to that. I love the way you said that. Yeah, like I definitely vibe with that.
And then question number 3, bringing it back from season 2, what is the most important sequence in the movie?
Oh, man.
This is a hard one.
Yeah, it is. I think character-wise, the most important scene is when Dana, and I think it's telling of Peter's true character. And I'm going to get a little deep here, so please, you know, allow it.
Strapped in.
All right. So he goes to Dana's apartment, and there is no Dana, only Zool. And she's DTF. Like, she's super DTF.
Super DTF.
And he is, you know, she's like, I love the first scene. Are you the keymaster? No. And she just slams the door. And then he just knocks on it again. And then she, exactly the same way, are you the keymaster? Yeah, no, but, and then he slides in, but I'm a friend of his. In that moment, if he was the scumbag that he portrayed himself to be, he could have said, I'm the keymaster. He could have done any number of sexual things with her. And he was worried. And what does he do? He calls Egon. Guys, she just floated like 6 feet off. They're 3 feet off the bed.
I think the exact line is something along the lines of, I like a girl who sleeps above her. She sleeps above her covers, 6 feet above her covers.
Yeah. Yes. That. And like when she's like, there is no Dana, only what a lovely singing voice you have. Just like those
she says,
lines.
I want you inside of me. It sounds like there's enough people inside there already.
Exactly. But the fact that was his I think that told us everything we needed to know about the character, that he plays this scumbag. When it comes down to it, he is an honorable dude who, all right, like something's fucked up is going on and we're going to need to save the day here. And I think, to me, for Peter's character, that was the most important scene in the movie.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. I tend to take this question pretty literally in most cases, where I try to think of the scene that kind of sets off the whole movie. But in this case, I don't think it's the most important sequence of the movie. And the reason for that is because I think this huge ending, I think the huge Marshmallow Man, which is a carryover from the original script. In the original script, it appears like 20 minutes in, and they changed it so that it would be the final boss, if you will. But
yeah,
I think seeing them redeem themselves and defend New York City, and have this moment that binds them, and that they're willing to give up their lives for that is such an important sequence and such a setup for the future second film, and hopefully leading into the third film, or I guess the second film. It's just that to me is one of the most important sequences. It's such a beautifully well done sequence with the whole thing.
I mean, I agree that I already talked about it too, and I think both of us said it, and I think yes, they're again, them being the last line of defense between us and this interdimensional being that wants to kill all of us are these four morons, and I think that I do, I love that scene, I do.
So let's get the official number on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being horrible and 10 being a masterpiece. What are you rating the movie?
I give the first Ghostbusters film a 10 out of 10, and I don't give those lightly. That's why it is in my top 10 list of movies of all time.
So here's what I'll say. I love this movie. It's a classic movie. I feel like it is definitely a must watch. I will say that having watched it all the way through for the first time in quite a long time, it didn't hold the full legendary status in my head. I give it a 7.5, which is pretty high. I'm a hard grader. And like I said, I still have a lot of respect for it. I definitely still think it's a must watch.
That's fair. I mean, I think that there's a bias too, that I grew up with this movie, had all the toys, and just anytime it's on, like, it's a TNT movie or it's a USA movie.
Oh, for sure.
So I'm sitting down watching this. That's
yeah. I've seen this movie in clips like 17 times. I mean, because you catch it on and then you watch it for 20 minutes and something, you go in the other room or something like that. And
yeah, exactly. But I stand by my 10 out of 10.
So let's get into a very interesting Guess That Tomato for this episode. Guess That Tomato. That's where I challenge the guest to correctly identify the audience rating of your movie of choice on Rotten Tomatoes. Now, we had a little curveball here, because you watched them. How did you watch the movie? You said on Vudu?
Vudu. Yes, I own it on Vudu.
So apparently, and I didn't know this, Vudu displays the Rotten Tomatoes score.
Yes, right in the liner. So like, I literally just went through my movies. I clicked on Ghostbusters, and right on that first screen, right before you hit play, it just says tomato meter 97 for the the score or whatever.
And rather than take a victory, you decided to do the honorable thing. You reached out and you said, listen, we got a little bit of an issue. I've been on your show. I know you do this, and I already know the score. Now, luckily, the 97 is the critic score.
Yes.
And we're testing if you can guess the audience score. So you do kind of already have a hint, but as we've discussed many, many times, the critic score and the audience score usually have no connection whatsoever. So
it's true.
So let's see, Rocco, on a scale of 0 to 100, what do you think the audience score is for Ghostbusters on Rotten Tomatoes?
I'm going to say 89.
89. Okay. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you 3 movies that are within 2% plus or minus of this movie's score. And season 3, we're doing things a little differently. And we're going to break those 3 movies up into the good, the bad, and the ugly. So starting with the good, Onward. What makes this movie good? This movie is the perfect combination of fantasy, animation, love, adventure, and character development, and is probably one of my favorite movies in the last 3 years.
It's a great movie. Yeah, it's a great movie.
If you're a D&D fan, that's a phenomenal movie.
And I cried. Like, oh my God. I
bawled
cried
like a baby.
Yeah.
The Bad, the Orange Years, the Nickelodeon story. What makes this bad? How about how old I feel after watching this? Sure, there's great nostalgia feeling there for a little while, but the first time one of those child actors gets on screen as an adult and you're forced to come face to face with your own mortality and it's all covered in green slime, yeah, it's bad. And
I did not watch that.
Oh, you should. It's great. And lastly, The Ugly, 1917. What makes this ugly? The unbelievably realistic depiction of World War I and the chilling single frame approach that makes you feel like a voyeur watching a boy come to grips with the reality of war.
Jesus.
That's also a movie we covered in season 2. So if you're wanting to know the thoughts on that movie, go back and check that out. Now, Rocco, there's a secondary hint hidden in there. Do you want to change your guess?
Secondary hint hidden there. Fudge. Honestly, no. I don't want to change my guess. I don't.
You said 89, correct?
I said 89.
So the secondary hint is that if you go back and listen to Critical Mass from many, many months ago when I was on there, we played a similar game with Goonies. And 1917 was one of the movies that there. So if you remember what that score was, this should be relatively easy. You said 89.
I totally don't remember. I did it last night.
It was last night. You said 89. The correct answer for Ghostbusters is 88. You're off by 1. That's close enough. There's always plus or minus 2, right? That's close enough.
I feel good to be right there with the audience.
Yeah, this is a relatively high score. I mean, 97 from critics. That's insane. I've never seen a score that high from critics. Anything else you want to discuss about Ghostbusters?
Just that, like, I don't know. It's such a stupid concept that made a home in like so many people's hearts. And I think that I think that just seeing the trailers of Afterlife, like I'm going to probably, I just found out the tickets are on sale. So I think I'm going to get my tickets after we're done recording here. But
I'll have to see when it hits theaters. I mean, what is that, like next week or something?
In 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
2 weeks from today, it hits theaters. So I'll be going opening night. And I think that based on the trailers that I saw, based on the tremendous amount of respect I have for Paul Rudd and the fact that they are, that his son, Jason Reitman, is doing this movie, I really think that they're going to nail it. And I think that they know what this movie means to people, like the first movie, because it's so ridiculous. It's such a ridiculous concept.
Have you read anything about it? Like, as far as like, have you seen any early ratings or what early showings are saying?
Yeah. So a lot of people are saying, like, if you're here for the nostalgia of the first movie, like you're going to get it.
Oh, good.
But there are people that like always take issues with it. Like, oh yeah, this was just for the fans.
Well, I mean, that's what it should be for. Like, I love that it's just for the fans. I hope it's just for the fans.
Exactly. And I just love like the trailer where she's holding the trap and Paul Rudd, her teacher, is like, is this real? Right. And then like it like zaps and he like drops it on the ground and he's like explaining to her about what happened in New York City and the Great Rift or whatever it was, and I don't know, man. I can't wait to see this movie, and I hope it lives up to everything that I need it to be.
I think Paul Rudd is such a great comedic actor. He's not a comedian. I think he would bomb at stand up, but as a comedic actor, he's amazing. He is so funny.
He is. And a lot of people don't know this, and you either love or you hate, I found. But Paul Rudd in the final season or final 2 seasons of Friends, I don't know if you've watched it.
Yeah, he plays the boyfriend, Phoebe's boyfriend.
Phoebe's boyfriend, yeah, Mike. And I think he's so funny in that. He added such a great element to that already established group. To have that established group of people for so many years in the show Friends, and then add Paul Rudd and not even skip a beat, like, to me, just incredible. So, like, just what he can do, him and his Ant-Man, and then now Ghostbusters. I don't think there's anything you can do wrong, and he doesn't age. He doesn't ever age.
It's freakish, really.
It is. It truly is. Someone held a picture of him like back in the day, and then like a picture of him now, and they're like, somehow he looks younger now.
It's weird. So before I let you go, Rocco, as you know, it's a firm belief of the owners of Don't Forget a Towel that everybody geeks out on something. While it may not be comic books and movies, maybe it's catching ghosts and, you know, dousing yourself in Marshmallow Man. So what is it you're geeking on right now?
Oh, wow. I have to say, and this is just anything.
Anything. Yep. Anything you're geeking out on.
Right now, I just finished on Dark Knights of Steel #1. It's a comic book. And if you are a fan of DC and if you're a fan of Game of Thrones, you should be watching this. So imagine Game of Thrones, but it's all the DC characters. So the House of L.
Oh my God. Is this new?
Yeah, it just dropped Tuesday, #1. It's called Dark Knights of Steel.
I am writing this down. This is the first time I'm hearing of this, and it sounds like the perfect orgasm for my eyes.
So no spoilers, because I won't do that to you. But like, there's the House of L, which I'm sure you can tell who that house is.
Right.
There's the House of Green. In the House of L, they have the Black Knight, the Dark Knight that protects the young prince of the He's
my
his protector.
God.
There's the court jester Harlequin. There's it's what the mystical archer in the woods.
Is this like a mini series? Like, is it only going to be so many issues, or is it
12 issues?
12 issues. I am getting all of these. I'm going to the comic book store right now.
You should. But #1 is out. I did get the cover A, plus I got the variant cover, which is like a knight on a horse, but the knight is in knight armor, and it's very obvious that it's Batman.
Oh my God!
So
wait,
that's
it's Batman? I'm just kidding.
Yeah, the variant cover, but yeah, it's they really change the DC story, as you know, and I mean even more so than the fact that they're in like medieval times. Mm-hmm. I mean, like, there is a drastic change that is revealed in the first book, that to the story that you know. Mm-hmm. And it is very much like Game of Thrones. Like, when you, like, the first book, I was like, okay, so like they're really going for that Game of Thrones piece, but I didn't care because it was so good.
I don't know if you know this. It's well documented that I am a Batman fan and a DC fan.
No.
Yeah, I don't want to ruin your image of me. But I am. I might be even more so a Game of Thrones fan. I've watched the TV series at least 3 times all the way through. I don't read, I do the audiobooks. I've listened to the audiobooks twice all the way through. I love Game of Thrones. I think it's the most well done TV show we've had. And, you know, people hate on the final season, and I'm not going to lie, the final season wasn't like my ideal picture perfect ending, but I thought it was good. I didn't mind it.
I thought it was fine.
The only thing that I didn't like, that I flat out didn't like, and no spoilers, is Arya's impact on one of the major storylines. I didn't like that, and that's all I'll say. But that's cool, man. That sounds awesome. Anything else that you're geeking out on?
Let's see, Dark Knights of Steel, and I don't know. trying to think of anything else because mostly all I do is read comics if I'm not podcasting.
No, I get it, man. I mean, and it's like poop. Don't force it, okay?
No, it's okay. I would say, yeah. I mean, that's really the biggest thing. Like I'm consuming probably like 10 comics in the Batman world a week. So, this is just the newest one. I've been waiting for this one for a while. So I definitely suggest it. That and Batman Reptilian is pretty good. If you haven't read that yet, that's, there is a reptile-like creature in Gotham, and it is not only maiming villains, but like just killing them outright. So a lot of his rogues gallery is just absolutely killed.
Wow.
And Batman's going through the city trying to figure out who is doing this. That's really dark. It's really twisted. It's a Black Series, or not Black Series, Black Label book. So it's definitely there's a lot of gore in there. But it's pretty good.
Though. I'll have to check that out.
Yeah.
For me, I mean, the only thing I really got going on is me and a couple friends of mine, I mentioned this on the podcast before, we developed this kind of disc golf tournament almost, where we try to play once a month at a different course, and we keep track of scores, and we award points and so on. Saturday is our last game of the season. We're actually traveling like an hour away to go to a distant course, and I'm pretty stoked. There's no chance of me taking first place, but I'm in a very heated back and forth with second place, so we'll have to see. So my focus is kind of there right now. But other than that, I'm actually recording a lot, trying to get a head start on season 3. So I've been binging quite a few movies. If you guys follow me on Letterboxd, you have a good understanding of what's coming up this season. That's probably your only way of figuring out before I announce on the socials what's coming out, is if you follow me on Letterboxd, you can kind of see what I'm watching. I log all the movies I watch there. Other than that, man, Twitter, Gutsy Media, Instagram, Gutsy Media Podcast, Facebook at Gutsy Media Podcast. Rocco, tell the people what you guys got going on. Where can we find you?
Critical Mass Podcast can be found at Critical Mass Podcast 69 on Facebook, because we're children. You can find us on Twitter at Critical Mass Pod. You can find us on Instagram, Critical Mass Podcast, I think, there. We're on anywhere you podcast, we're there. The show is trash.
But it's tasty trash. It's like garbage plates.
That's fair. That's fair. We talk about everything from politics to what's going on in the world today, to pop culture, to just really, we have our finger on the pulse of what's happening right now. And we had you on our last episode, which you'll know months from now that had happened. And we talked
go
about
back in time and listen to it. It was a great episode. We had a lot of fun. I love being on the show. You guys have such a harmonious rapport. It's great that the quality of friendship that really seeps out when you guys talk to each other and embrace each other. It's sweet, really.
Honestly, the story I have to tell you how this podcast even happened is Dan and I lived together, and it got to a point where, like, I couldn't live there anymore financially speaking, but that was probably really great for our friendship. That, like, I moved out, and then, like, the way we spoke to each other just kind of continued. And if anyone knows, we're not exactly friendly to one another all the time. And one of our friends was like, "Oh my God, you guys should have a podcast. Like, it would be hilarious." And we were like, "You think so?" And we did. We started it up, and we have a great listener base. And I'm to this day, I can't believe it. I'm appreciative of it.
Well, I need the name of that friend that suggested it so that we can, put a hit out on him. Thanks so much for being on the show, man. I really appreciate it.
Dude, I had a blast, man. Anytime. I love being here.